Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 30, The Activities of the Pracetas, Text 44. Ata niryaya salilat Pracetasa udanvataha Bhikshya kupyan dhrumaishchanam Gam gam rodum evoch tritai Ata niryaya salilat Pracetasa udanvataha Bhikshya kupyan dhrumaishchanam Gam gam rodum evoch tritai Ataniryaya salilat Pracetasa udhanvata Bhikshya kupyan dhrumaishchanam Gam gam rodum evoch tritai Vaishnavis. Atta, thereafter. Niryaya, after coming out. Salilat, from the water. Pracetasaha, all the pracetas. Udanvata, of the sea. Bhikshya, having observed. Akupyan, became very angry. Drumai, by trees. Channam, covered. Gam, the world. Gam, the heavenly planets. Rodum, to obstruct. Iva, as if. Uchtritai, very tall. Translation. Thereafter, all the Pracetas emerged from the waters of the sea. They then saw that all the trees on land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the Pracetas became very angry. Purport. King Pracetas left his kingdom before his sons arrived after their execution of penance and austerity. The sons, the Pracetas, were ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come out of the water and go to the kingdom of their father in order to take care of that kingdom. However, when they came out, they saw that everything had been neglected due to the king's absence. They first observed that food grains were not being produced and that there were no agricultural activities. Indeed, the surface of the world was practically covered by very tall trees. It seemed as though the trees were determined to stop people from going into outer space to reach the heavenly kingdoms. The Pracetas became very angry when they saw the surface of the globe covered in this way. They desired that the land be cleared for crops. It is not a fact that jungles and trees attract clouds and rain, because we find rainfall over the sea. Human beings can inhabit any place on the surface of the earth by clearing jungles and converting land for agricultural purposes. People can keep cows, and all economic problems can be solved in that way. One need only work to produce grains and take care of the cows. The wood found in jungles may be used for constructing cottages. In this way, the economic problem of humanity can be solved. At the present moment, there are many vacant lands throughout the world, and if they are properly utilized, there will be no scarcity of food. As far as rain is concerned, it is performance of yajna that attracts rain. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anasambhavaha yagyat bhavati parijanyo yagya karma samudbhavaha. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. By performing sacrifice, man will have sufficient rainfall and crops. Translation again. Thereafter, all the Pracetas emerged from the waters of the sea. They then saw that all the trees on land had grown very tall, as if to obstruct the path to the heavenly planets. These trees had covered the entire surface of the world. At this time, the Pracetas became very angry. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Atat Niraya Salila. After coming out from the water, what were the Pracetas doing in the water in the first place? They were submerged in the water for 10,000 years. Why would someone want to do that? Their father, King Pracetas, just like Daksha did in the 6th canto, sent his sons to perform austerities before they would take up any executive role. So this is Satya Yuga. Out of a lifespan of 100,000 years, what's the problem in spending 10,000 years practicing austerities so that the rest of your life can be on the good foot, on a solid foundation? Nowadays, that's considered complete madness. Don't sacrifice even a week for the ultimate good. The ultimate good is right now how you feel right now, or next weekend at the most. That is the ultimate good. Why would you want to, let's say you did have a lifespan of 100,000 years. Use every moment to get it while you can, to enjoy. Why should you spend 10,000, 1/10 of your lifespan, performing severe austerities and penances? But just as Daksha in the 6th canto, similarly, King Pracetas in this 4th canto knows that even from the material point of view, if my sons are going to be successful, they need to practice austerities. Even from the material point of view. There's some remnant, very slight remnant of that understanding today, in that you're sent to school to prepare for the future. Your parents tell you, if you don't go to school, primary school, intermediate school, secondary school, and then university, it's all for your future. But that's about it. And what's the future envisioned by your typical educational process? The future for making money. I once saw the mantra, the mission statement for the New Zealand Ministry of Education, and said the purpose of education is to foster economic development. Very nicely encapsulated, Kali Yuga essence. The purpose is economic development. So whatever makes the money, that's where the university goes. There used to be this idea in the first world educational system that to create ideal citizens, you needed an educated class that understood the humanities, that old-fashioned word, studying history, literature, this, that, the other, so you could be a well-rounded human being while making money and making politics. Now that idea is tossed out. Every minute of your educational process should be geared on things that bring in the money, occupations that bring in the money. Technology is most important. In this way, the technology of the spirit soul is totally unheard of. So King Pracetas sent his sons off to perform austerities, and in that way, he knew that when it's time for him to retire, he would have competent sons to take up the rule, take up the government. Now try telling that to a politician today, that you need to spend some time practicing austerities before we'll vote for your party. People would think you're mad. So what about these austerities? They were submerged in the ocean for 10,000 years. You might say, that sounds really mythological. Mythological means because we can't do it, it must be a myth. This is yoga. Yoga has many different meanings, shades of meaning. One is connection to the Supreme. But also yoga refers in general to any kind of ability or prowess. Just like when you see a bird flying through the air. That's yoga power. You can't do it. But the bird, by flapping its wings, can fly. Or a fish can breathe underwater. You can't do it, but the fish can. So the Pracetas have the yoga power of being able to stay underwater for 10,000 years. You just have to know the art, as Prabhupada would always say. You just have to know the art. And because people today don't know the art, they think, oh, this is mythology. What human beings could do this? First of all, what human beings could live for 100,000 years? Secondly, how could they spend 10,000 years submerged in the ocean? But this is all about skill. So while the Pracetas were submerged in the ocean, they heard from Lord Shiva. And what they heard from Lord Shiva is called the Rudra Gita. There are different Gitas or songs in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's the Uddhava Gita, the part of the 11th canto, spoken between Uddhava and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's the Brahmara Gita, the song of the bumblebee, spoken by Srimati Radharani to the bumblebee. And there's also the Rudra Gita, the song sung by Lord Shiva. So the Pracetas heard that. And they also received instruction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Having heard all that instruction, they emerged from the ocean after 10,000 years, because it was time for them to take up the reins of the government. You should notice that their father, King Prachinabarishad, had already left. He had retired. He had left home, left the palace. He had been lectured to by Narada Muni. So before the Pracetas arrived back to the kingdom, their father had left. And therefore, in that gap, things were a bit out of hand. As you're hearing in today's verse, the trees had covered the whole world, as if, this is metaphorically speaking, as if they're blocking the path to the heavenly planets. It's a way of speaking that these trees were very tall. Not that you trees can block the path to the heavenly planets, but this is a way of talking about big things. Just like Shukadeva Goswami, when describing the cowherd boys playing with Krishna, he said, Krita Punya Punja. How many pious activities did these cowherd boys perform in their previous life? How many pious activities did they do to attain this association with Krishna in friendship? Now, pious activities will not bring you that association in Krishna Leela. But it's a way of saying, how great is this? How many millions of pious activities must these cowherd boys have performed? It means, what did they do to become so fortunate? So similarly, the trees have blocked the pathway to the heavenly planets. It's a way of expressing exclamation mark. Wow, this is, you would say what? It's more than awesome, this is humongous. Do they still use that word, humongous? So, what was the Pracetas' reaction? They were angry. As the purport says, the Pracetas became very angry when they saw the surface of the globe covered in this way. Why were they angry? They're supposed to be sadhus. Still, they're Kshatriyas. They're Rajarshis. They're philosopher kings. And so they're angry. So why? If they're so elevated, they've been taught by Lord Shiva, the Rudra Gita. They've been instructed by the Supreme Personality Godhead himself. Why did they become angry? Because they saw the situation. We have been ordered to care for the world. How can we care for the world and its maintenance, its prosperity, when the trees have covered the whole world? The trees are blocking our service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're blocking our service to the people in general. Therefore, they were angry. Not any kind of selfish anger due to unfulfilled desires. You may recall in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the cycle of contemplating the objects of the senses And then attachment develops. From attachment comes lust, and from lust comes anger. Why? People often wonder, why from lust comes anger? Why not just lust and lust and lust and lust? On and on, pure lust. That's the goal of Kali Yuga. Lust after lust with no impediment. It's not going to happen. As soon as there is lust, there must be frustration. Because lust is never satisfied. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Dusparinanalena cha, burns like fire and never is satisfied. The more fuel you put on the fire, the bigger the fire gets. You think just a little more fuel and the fire will be satisfied. Just a bit more. What does Prahlad Maharaj say? Kanduyanena kavayo iva dukkha dukkam. You're rubbing two hands together to relieve an itch. You've ever been bitten by a mosquito right around the inner part of your wrist? Or the bottom of your palm of your hand? It's just irritating and agitating. And so you might think, let me rub my two inner wrists together and that will relieve the itch. But no, the itch gets worse. So Prahlad Maharaj, although only around 5 years old, is pointing this out. Yanmai tunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham. That sukha, so-called material delight, is so insignificant. Sukham hitucham. Tripyanti neha. The fools are never satisfied by this scratching business. I remember working as a camp counselor for a summer, and the kids from the city would come to these camps, and there would always be a nature instructor to take the kids on a nature walk. And so we went into the forest, and there were, with the kids and the nature instructor and the counselors, the camp counselors. And there were so many mosquitoes. And we were just swatting and scratching and swatting and scratching. And then we looked at the nature guide. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't swatting and scratching. So we asked him why. Why is he not bothered? He says, I know. This type of mosquito, if you just let it bite, it inserts the stuff that makes you itch and then withdraws it before it flies away. So he had knowledge. So he wasn't swatting and scratching. We didn't have that knowledge. And even after he told us, because we didn't have sense control, we still, I can't believe that. Scratch, scratch, scratch. So this is what knowledge can do and what the lack of knowledge can do. So we're speaking about the cycle that begins with contemplating the objects of the senses and how kama, lust, always turns sooner or later into anger. Frustration also counts as anger, by the way. You might think, well, I wasn't angry, I was just a bit frustrated, a tiny bit dissatisfied. That's anger in its reduced state before it escalates. And so the anger of the Pracetas was not like that. They were angry because their mission given to them by the Supreme Personality of Godhead was thwarted. They had to do something about it. They weren't forgiving immediately. Forgiving is the hallmark of Brahmanas. This is described in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, in the incident between Jamadagni and Parashuram. Bhrigupati Rupa, Keshavadrita Bhrigupati Rupa, Jai Jagadishai. Jamadagni is explaining to Parashuram that forgiveness is the most important quality of a brahmana. It makes when the brahmana is luminous, radiating effulgence, that effulgence is actually due to his ability to forgive. And we read in the 9th canto, in this section, that Lord Brahma attained his post by his display of the quality of forgiveness. Normally you hear that the post of Brahma goes to the most pious person in the universe. The person who's performed the most punya, pious activities, good karma, flawlessly for 100 births. The Shastra says, Brahma, the post of Brahma, it's the name of a post, is attained by someone who has performed perfectly Varnashram Dharma for 100 births. We don't even know what it's like to perform Varnashram Dharma perfectly for 1 hour. But the 9th canto is telling us that there is one salient feature for becoming Lord Brahma, that Brahma attained his post by the ability to forgive. And this ability to forgive pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes it's very difficult for our devotees to forgive. We can become very self-righteous. You wronged me, you offended me, you minimized me, you misunderstood me, and never asked for my version. Yes, these things shouldn't happen. Still, if we are brahmanas, if we are actual brahmanas, we're forgiven. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to this section about how brahmanas are known by their ability to forgive, he points out that every varna has its beauty. Beauty can be seen in different persons, in different situations, in different ways. So he gives the example of the cuckoo bird. The cuckoo bird is very dark, yet that cuckoo bird sings very sweetly. So the beauty of the cuckoo bird is its melodious sound. Similarly, someone may be physically unattractive, but they're beautiful because they have knowledge. What else? Take the case, as we're speaking, of brahmanas. Brahmanas are beautiful by the quality of forgiveness. But what about Kshatriyas? These Pracetas are Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas are beautiful by their courage, never turning their back in battle. Yuddhe chapyapalayanam, Krishna explains in the 18th chapter of the Gita. The Kshatriyas are beautiful when they display fearlessness, never turning away from a challenge. And Vaishyas are beautiful by their staging cultural performances and protecting cows. And finally, Shudras are beautiful by their serving the other Varnas. So how many beautiful brahmanas do we have here? Forgiving is not easy. But that's why the brahmanas acquire their tejas, their powers. But the Pracetas are Kshatriyas. Therefore, they have a right to be angry and do something about the situation. But remember, such Kshatriyas in Vedic civilization are always guided by brahmanas. So it's not that the Kshatriyas are marching here and there, being angry, chastising, correcting, and that's it. No, above the Kshatriyas are the brahmanas who exercise forgiveness. So it's a perfect system. So the Pracetas are occupationally correct to be angry. What is this? How can people live when trees are covering everything? How are they going to eat? How are people going to grow food? So then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of how to live simply. Human beings can inhabit any place on the surface of the earth by clearing jungles and converting land for agricultural purposes. People can keep cows, and all economic problems can be solved in that way. One need only work to produce grains and take care of the cows. The wood found in the jungles may be used for constructing cottages. In this way, the economic problem of humanity can be solved. You say, wait a minute, that just sounds really simplistic, doesn't it? Clear the land, use the wood to build cottages, produce grains, take care of cows. Come on, this is the age of IT. But you see, Prabhupada is pushing the Bhagavatam perspective, which is different from the perspective of life today as it's lived. That Bhagavatam perspective is the main purpose of human life is not economic development. The main purpose is self-realization. Knowing that, the more simply you can live, the better. In other words, why spend your whole life, or most of your life, transforming natural resources into consumer products? Why not just take the natural resources as they are, use them, and live a simple life? This is the wisdom of Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's difficult to understand when your mind is saturated with passion and ignorance. How can we live without consumer products? So what is the reality of the world today? The 9 nuclear powers in the world spend, on an average, almost $3,000 US dollars per second on nuclear weapons. That's 3,000 US dollars per second. Every time a second goes by, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 5 seconds go by, $15,000 has been spent on nuclear weapons. And this is advancement. So if we tell people, clear the land, take the wood to build cottages, keep cows, produce grains, oh my God. Are you kidding me? Who could be serious about this? $3,000 per second for nuclear weapons? Well, we need those weapons to guarantee our freedoms and liberty. And you may note that the famous land of the free and home of the brave, the USA, spends more on nuclear weapons than all the other 8 nuclear powers combined. So anyway, this is Kali Yuga. So when you have the proper focus on what's the goal of your life, what's the goal of life in society, then you see we don't need all these other endeavors. So basically, Prabhupada is pushing out all these other false goals and saying, look, your life is meant for self-realization. Push everything else aside. And people are shocked. Oh, how can you say that? Because they're thinking your life is meant for conveniences, consumption, production. Who knows where all the waste is going to go? But our life is meant to consume, produce and consume. So it's a different, Bhagavatam is presenting a completely different way of looking at the world. As we read in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, in the preface or the introduction, the Bhagavatam is a program for re-spiritualizing the entire world, a cultural program. So what is that culture? Live simply, because your main focus is self-realization. not live complicatedly while having a little sprinkling of Dharma on top, because the main purpose of life is to consume and enjoy. So it's completely different perspectives. So naturally, not everyone's going to appreciate. How can you live in a wooden house? If you ever lived in a wooden house, you know they're very healthy. Produce grains. Why do we need to produce grains? You just go to the supermarket, go to New World, Countdown. Take care of cows. Who wants to take care of cows? Easier just to have cows and kill them when they're not productive anymore. Why take care of them? We've got everything figured out, the Kali Yuga resident thinks, until the destruction comes, and then they wonder, why is this happening? Why is there so much suffering? So the Pracetas are empowered, and their anger is a symptom of their empowerment. We got to do something about this. We've been ordered to care for the people. How can we care for the people? How can the people be cared for when they can't grow any food? So they were angry. And so they, as you'll hear in the coming verses, started to wipe out all the trees by emanating fire and air from their mouth. The air, of course, has oxygen, which the flames feed upon. They could do that just by breathing out with their mouth, in the same way that Lord Shiva annihilates the universe. So you might say, well, who can believe that? Producing fire and oxygen from your mouth? This is mystic power, because they had performed austerities. They were able to have such powers. And so they're wiping out all the trees. And then Lord Brahma comes and calms them down. All right, enough is enough. In other words, the Pracetas acknowledged higher authority. They weren't just Kshatriyas, powerful Kshatriyas, just doing their thing. They were proper in their Varnashram Dharma behavior. Brahma, who is Adi Kavi, the original intellectual of the universe, has told us, cease and desist. Enough is enough. All right, we'll take it in that way. So they're showing you, they were right to be angry, and they were right that their anger was checked by the Brahmana. So let us remember this beauty of the Brahmanas, forgiveness. Sounds easy, doesn't it? We've all been in situations in which we thought, I'll never forgive that person. Never, never, never. Someone will say, never say never. No, I don't care. I'm never going to forgive that person. But that's the quality, the hallmark of a Brahmana. And remember, that's how Lord Brahma attained his post, by forgiveness. All right, any questions? Sorry for all the coughs. Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful class. I see you're struggling with a cough throughout, so thank you for being kind to us and coming today and doing the class despite your obvious health. So we're very grateful. Thank you.
Yes, I wish I could have come for Kirtan, but yes.
Brahmanas have knowledge, and my understanding is that because they have knowledge, then they're able to forgive. So what is it about knowledge that enables the Brahmanas to be forgiving?
They understand how material nature works. Especially in Kali Yuga. Social relations in Kali Yuga are problematic. Always some misunderstanding. I'm sure in your illustrious devotional career, you've dealt with situations in which someone just sees what you've done completely differently. And they're totally sincere about it. And you're wondering, don't you see this and don't you see that? And how could you say like that and that? And the person has his or her own perspective. That's the way it is in Kali Yuga. And so we have to expect that. How to tolerate different perspectives. How can someone see like that? Don't they see the other thing? And we've all been in situations like that, and we'll probably continue to be in situations like that. So understanding that a prime symptom of Kali Yuga is quarrel. A Brahmana seeks to minimize that. You can't avoid it all the time, but how not to add fuel to the fire. As the saying goes, loose lips sink ships. You know what it's like when you know just what to say to get under that other person's skin. But to just bite your tongue, that takes sense control. And the sense control is based on knowledge. I hear about this often from not simply Grihastha couples, but often Grihastha couples. I don't know why I said that. I shouldn't have said like that. And then, of course, the other person won't forget what you said for 50 years. All you had to do was bite your tongue, but you couldn't do it. You had to say it. And then that person takes offense, is angry at you, and you'll hear about it 50 years later. You remember 50 years ago when you said such and such and such and such. So it takes knowledge to control your senses. It takes knowledge to think, what's the best way to act in this situation for Krishna's pleasure? The more you know of Krishna, the more you take into account the Krishna factor. And as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, the austerities of the tongue, anudvegam karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat, swajaya bhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchate. The tapasya of the tongue is not to speak words that agitate, to speak words that are beneficial, to speak words that are in line with Vedic knowledge. That's the austerity of the tongue. It's something we need to think about because our tongues can so easily cause havoc. And what's the Kali Yuga format for so much tongue warfare? The internet, social media. It's the same as the tongue, just keyboard. The keyboard's the extension of your tongue. Anything else? Yes.
You mentioned about Varshana, remember when you were talking about the theory of different brahmanas. Question is it possible to practice your Varshana dharma in Kali Yuga, even among the society of devotees?
Prabhupada always asks for that. We're still trying to figure out how to do it. How to balance being a Vaishnava with acting in a certain varna. We've been very ashram focused, trying to get together a real brahmacharya ashram, a real grihastha ashram, a real sannyas ashram. It's taken quite some decades just to do that. We are, when I say we, I'm talking about the society of devotees as a whole. We are developing educational processes, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, even Bhakti Vedanta, study of the Shastra. But how to develop Kshatriyas, how to develop Vaishyas, how to train Sudras, while remembering everyone should come to the Vaishnava platform. We haven't addressed that yet. So someone could ask you, you like selling real estate, so it's Vaishya activity. So you should be staging cultural productions and caring for cows. So where are your cows? Where are the cultural productions? Big kirtan festivals, city preaching, that much you're doing, taking care of city preaching. So yes, all right. You have the beauty of a Vaishya. And in that same purport where Prabhupada describes the different types of beauty for different persons, he says something that may not be so popular these days. I don't know if I should repeat it. The beauty of a wife is her chastity. Anyway, that's what the Bhagavatam says. I didn't say it. Anything else? Yes.
My understanding is that we're all meant to develop brahminical qualities,
No,
not like forgiveness, like in the
not everyone has that Brahmana psychophysical nature or desire to have that nature. But of course, as devotees, as Vaishnavas, Trinadapi Sunichena, Taroyava Sahishnuna, if we want to be followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is beyond Varnas, then lower than a straw on the street, more tolerant than a tree, and tolerant than a tree means forgiveness. So there are two things, keep in mind. There's Varnashram Dharma and then there's Vaishnava. Actually, Vaishnava is not part of the Varnashram Dharma system, but for the sake of others to show the example, the Vaishnava adopts a particular Varna. We haven't figured out yet how to do that. Just like before Prabhupada departed, 1977, he was explaining to leaders that the time is more right now to apply Varnashram Dharma than when he first brought it up several years before. He said the time is more right, and that was 1977. So one devotee asked, well, Prabhupada, why do we need this Varnashram Dharma? Aren't we all Vaishnavas? And Prabhupada replied, if everyone's a Vaishnava, why are they falling down? Vaishnava doesn't fall down. So we need some kind of format for when persons can't follow Vaishnava standard completely. They're just not lost in the material world. And that's what Varnashram Dharma does. It creates some kind of system for all levels of persons. Persons who want to do something for Krishna but are never going to chant 16 rounds. You've met persons like that before? They're favorable, but they're just not going to chant 16 rounds. Or they just don't want to follow all the regular principles, but they recognize, yes, Krishna, let me do some service. In Wellington, we have one American devotee who's been living in New Zealand for a quarter of a century. He's been coming to the Bhakti Lounge for 25 years. You may know him, Adam. And when he first came, he would just say, I'm an atheist Hare Krishna. You know him, Stamba Baba? Yes. And he would just come and do service, humble service in the kitchen. So now, he says, after 25 years of doing that, he says, I'm an agnostic Hare Krishna. But he loves to serve in the kitchen and he loves prasadam. There are going to be people like that. Anything else? Yes.
Just trying to understand the difference between Vaishnava and Brahmana, because
A Brahmana is not necessarily a Vaishnava. That's all over Chaitanya Charitamrita especially. What's the use, the Shastra says, in being a Brahmana if you're not a devotee of Krishna. Someone born in a family of dog eaters, aho bata sopacho gariyan. How glorious is someone born in the family of a dog eater who becomes a Vaishnava, and how useless is someone born in a Brahmana family calling himself a Brahmana but has no bhakti. What's the use? Don't you remember reading that in Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Yeah, so my confusion is, I'm just trying to understand how a Kshatriya a Vaishnava who's acting in the Varna of a Kshatriya, how, because he's a Vaishnava, shouldn't he forgive, but at the same time he has to act as his dharma as a Kshatriya?
Yes, the Pracetas were acting according to their dharma as Kshatriyas. And part of their Varna is to listen to the Brahmanas. So Lord Brahma came, the chief Brahman of the universe. Enough is enough. You've removed enough trees. Otherwise, the Pracetas were just going at it full on, breathing out fire and oxygen from their mouth and incinerating all the trees. So part of their Kshatriya dharma is to listen to Brahmanas. And because they're so excellent in being Kshatriyas, Narada Muni is going to come and give them instruction. The same Narada Muni who instructed their father, Prachina Barhisha. Yes. Hare Krishna Shaimala Devi, nice to see you. I don't know. What do you mean by having compassion for yourself?
Well, having compassion for everyone, not just yourself, but for all living entities, and having compassion for devotees and having compassion helps support forgiveness.
Compassion is necessary for every advanced being, but not everyone wants to be advanced. And how to show compassion is always a question. Just like you may present a book, Bhagavad Gita, to someone, and say, well, why are you imposing upon me? You're just trying to show them Bhagavad Gita, and they take it, well, who are you to push this on me? So someone would think you're not being compassionate. You should just let the person rot in material existence. Why are you trying to interfere with their destiny, their life? It's their life. But you, because you have higher knowledge, are trying to present the book to them, present Bhagavad Gita. So who's actually compassionate? It all depends on your higher knowledge. Otherwise, someone would say, be compassionate, leave the person alone. Of course, this is always a dilemma. When to say something to someone when you see that they're not doing properly in devotional service, or they haven't come to devotional service, but they could. When do you say something and when do you not? It causes endless thought. Well, should I say something now? Should I say something later? Should I say something at all? Should I just forget it? It's a tough one. It requires a lot of prayer to Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. And it may look like, at first, you've made the wrong choice. I remember once in one city in Russia, St. Petersburg. I was in charge of that yatra for a while. And there was one lady devotee, had been a devotee since she was 16. And now, in her family life, you know, the child, the husband, kind of she let her japa fall to the side. And now she's At that time, she was in her early 40s. So I knew her spiritual master very well, and I thought, let me try to help this devotee. I knew her husband very, very well, and he was telling me all the time, oh, what am I going to do? She hasn't chanted Hare Krishna for 20 years, and she wants to do this, she wants to do that. She's got this material ambition, that material ambition. I just want to have a happy Krishna conscious home. Would you say something to her, Maharaj? So I decided to march into the lion's den. So I just mentioned to her at a Sunday feast, why not start chanting Hare Krishna again? It's very nice. And she just looked at me like, didn't say anything. I said, well, that could have been worse. But then I heard from her husband that she went on a rage for 3 days. Who is he to tell me that? Who does he think he is? The husband came to see me 3 days later shaking like, Maharaj, what did you say to her? She's really exploded. I said, all I said to her was, wouldn't it be nice to chant Hare Krishna again? 1 month later, when I landed at the airport in St. Petersburg, Russia, coming from somewhere, I think coming from Helsinki, Finland, and she was at the airport. I said, uh-oh. Maharaj, you saved me. I'm chanting Hare Krishna now. Thank you so much. Okay. What can you say? And to this day, every time she sees me, from that point on that I mentioned it to her and she exploded, and then somehow or other she started chanting again, and ever since, whenever I see her, she's totally in awe and reverence. And of course her spiritual master, my godbrother, is very grateful. So you just don't know sometimes. Anything else? Yes.
Guru Maharaj, you explained how we're not, say when teaching a new person how to chant Hare Krishna or introducing them to the chant, you explained how we shouldn't say too much because they're not qualified.
Say too much means what? Not to say too much means?
Means not to explain too much about Hare Krishna.
Not to explain the intimate glories of the holy name. You see, when your tongue vibrates Hare Krishna, Krishna's dancing on your tongue. Don't say things like that.
So my question is it considered like an offense if you just explain the material benefits of chanting?
Like what?
Like peace of mind?
It's true. The peace of mind, though, is a spiritual benefit, but they'll take it materially. It's all right. You will get peace of mind if you properly chant Hare Krishna, something we devotees should remember. We love telling everyone, chant Hare Krishna. And then what about us? Well, I'm very busy, children, job, mortgage payments, traveling. So peace of mind can be taken in a material or spiritual way. Less anxiety. That's true. Vaikuntha is a place of no anxiety, no material anxiety. But at the topmost Vaikuntha, Goloka Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda is always in anxiety. And in Boma Leela, the gopis are always thinking, where is Krishna? Krishna can go any minute, even when he's there. And that meeting Krishna is also containing separation. Because even though they have Krishna, at the moment, they're thinking he could go any second. So that fear of separation heightens the ecstasy. Hard to understand. Yes. How do what?
How do we fully invest our heart in our service?
How do we fully invest our heart in our service? What have you ever invested your heart into? Eating. Well, you must have some secret for remaining slim. Whereas where's the other half? Does she have a secret? He remains slim too. You all must know something. If you like to eat so much and both of you are so slim. This is what I do. I think, what is it that I have done that I really put my heart into? That much, at least, I should give to Krishna. I should give more, but at least what I've put my heart into, I note that intensity and think that much should go for Krishna's service, at least. Because ultimately our goal is something very elevated, lolium, greed. That's why Rupa Goswami explains that if you can buy greed in the marketplace, do it. That's another way of saying you can't buy it in the marketplace. No material wealth will be enough to purchase spiritual greed. But that's what we want to develop, greed for Krishna. Now, do you know how to be greedy? When does that come out? When your husband is cooking. So you think when you're greedy for prasad, that this is one aspect I can be greedy for, but let me also be greedy for all aspects of devotion. I was thinking, seeing the devotees gathered here for Srimad Bhagavatam, do they understand why they're here? What's the purpose? Or are they doing it just ritualistically? Externally. Of course, doing it externally, ritualistically, is very good. Gradually, it'll dawn on you. I'm in the presence of Krishna. Bhagavatam is the presence of Krishna. Krishna is present wherever his glories are spoken. That's why I'm coming to Bhagavatam class. But in the beginning, it's fine to think, I'm coming because you're supposed to. If people look around and don't see me in class, they think I'm in Maya, which is not true, of course. So let me get myself to Bhagavatam class. That's sadhana bhakti. That's correct at that level. I always mention the definition of sadhana bhakti that Prabhupada gave in the book Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. He said, sadhana bhakti means you have to do it because I say. Current generations don't like that kind of approach. Have to do something because someone says. But a higher level is that you're spontaneously attracted to hear about Krishna. Bhagavatam class is where Krishna's glories will be spoken. Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Lord. Satam prasangan mama virya sambhado. When devotees gather, the talks about Krishna become extremely powerful and tasty. So hopefully we're making progress to that kind of motivation. But remember, the ultimate goal is greed. Just like Rupa Goswami says about chanting, I don't have enough tongues, I don't have enough ears, I wish I had millions of tongues, millions of ears. That's the real level of bhakti. That's what we're aspiring for. We hold that level over our head and beg Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda that we can make progress toward it. Millions of tongues are not enough. Millions of ears are not enough. That's where we're aiming. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Sorry for all the coughs.